Welcome, my friends and enemies, to the premiere episode of Breaking Wind, a Last Avatar podcast. Last Airbender podcast. Look at that. I've been a host for exactly 3 seconds and I've already screwed it up. In this podcast, I'm taking my good friend Jace. I'm taking him by his hand and I'm dragging him kicking and screaming through the world of Avatar in preparation for the Netflix premiere in February of the live-action Avatar The Last Airbender. With me, as I said, is my friend VHS Jace, and I am Jason Roy Gaston, and this is Breaking Wind. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy the ride. If you do like what you see here, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you don't like what you see here, please like, share, and subscribe. Because, you know, you can hate watch us. It's fine. I don't mind. So, VHS Jace, you are brand new to this universe. Tell me, what are your impressions of the Avatar universe before you started watching this TV show?
Well, I was obviously, you've got to be aware that Avatar exists in the world. You can't not live in this world and not know it. So I was fairly aware of it. Both my kids watched it and loved it. And I remember it because this show's like almost 18 years old now. Like, I was reading up that it came out in 2005. So I'm like, wow. So yeah, look, my impressions of it, that was well loved, well respected, until they made a movie with M. Night Shyamalan, and then it wasn't so loved and so respected. So
we don't speak of that.
That's all I know of. Oh, and apparently Legend of Korra is somehow, that's all I know. And
yes,
that's the level, Jace. I don't know anything more.
So you are an Avatar noob, so to speak.
Oh,
and we're here to get you.
Capitals.
Yes. You're an Avatar noob, and I said, hey, one of these days we've got to go through Avatar. We thought we were going to do it on The Legend of Jay Skulls, kind of do, other Saturday morning cartoons under that same label, and then we thought, hey, you know what? We have the live action series coming up. It looks really good, and we want to capitalize on that, and we want to exploit it for our own means, because that's what YouTube is. And here we are, capitalizing and exploiting. So without further ado, let's begin with episode 1, The Boy in the Iceberg. So we open up, first of all, with a very handy history lesson of what's been going on in the world of the Avatar and in the last 100 years. All the nations of this planet, I don't know what this planet is called, let's just call it Avataria. We're all getting along. You have the air nomads, you have the Fire Nation, you have the waterbenders, and you have the earthbenders, who all control all of these different elements. And then one day, the Avatar disappears. And that is when the Fire Nation attacks and pretty much messes up everything. I enjoy this opening because it is a history lesson. It just says, hey, we're about to punch you into this world. Here's what you got to know. Okay, let's go.
I you know me, Jace, I love a good bit of exposition. And this is beautifully, tightly explained, simplistic to follow. You know exactly where you're at in the 30 seconds. So, yeah, like when it comes down to it, this is probably as good as any scroll from episode 4. You know exactly what's going on in 30 seconds. So it's great. It's good.
Yes. So after the exposition that VHS Jace loves so much, we are introduced to 2 of our characters. Oh my goodness. There's a door here in the water bending nation. Excuse me.
Yeah. In the next room is some of our other shows.
I'm going to blame that on the cat penguins that just ran through here. Anyway, we are introduced to 2 of our protagonists, Katara and Sokka, brother and sister. They're out fishing in the icy waters. And again, there is some exposition here, but now it is more local and more intimate exposition as we get a sense of who these 2 characters are and what they're capable of. Katara is a fledgling waterbender. She can move water, but she's not very good at it. And Sokka is not a bender at all. And we learn more about him later, but we do know that the 2 of them do kind of annoy each other. They are brother and sister. Any thoughts on these characters?
Yeah, I thought they were both actually instantly likable characters in their own ways. I certainly like the sister quite a lot. You can empathize with her. She has a need and a want. And I like the older brother because he's a buffoon. You know, straight off the bat, he's like, oh, look, like I've had older brothers. Like he reminded me of that kind of know-it-all, but really knows nothing. Brave but really scared. So no, instantly likable characters. And you know what struck me straight away, Grace? And I don't know if the whole series is like this, but it's so evenly paced. Like they're not rushing. They take their time.
No, they are not rushing. There's a very methodical plan to this series. They had the entire thing all mapped out from the very beginning. I do have to go back though, where you said Sokka is a buffoon. I have to disagree. I don't think he's a buffoon. No, I don't think he's a buffoon, and I will tell you why in a little while. Maybe in the next episode, I'll tell you why I don't think he's a buffoon. But moving on, because we're going to keep a methodical pace as well. Katara loses her temper at Sokka. And in her little temper tantrum, she accidentally uses her water-bending powers and cracks an iceberg. And inside that iceberg, we find the hero of the story. We find Aang. Not Ong. If you call him Ong, I will slap you. We find Aang. And we get some more character building with him just instantaneously, because the first thing that he says is not, where am I? What's going on? It's, hey, will you go penguin sledding with me? Tells us everything we need to know about the character right there.
Well, you know.
So what are your thoughts on Aang?
Aang is like, yeah, when you're talking about likable characters, he just bounds youthful enthusiasm. He's a child. But even at this point, I get a little bit confused because I thought, hang on, isn't the Avatar supposed to be in there? He doesn't look like the Avatar. He's just a kid. Oh, maybe this is straight away my mind thinking, oh, maybe they think he's the Avatar, but he's really not the Avatar at all. But he's really likable. But he's likable, but my other favorite character is introduced in this scene. And I want one now, and that would be Appa.
Oh my goodness. Appa is just great. I have an Appa in my classroom, just this little figure of him, and all of the kids always want to play with him. And I keep telling them in the most fatherly, teachery way possible, get away from that. Yeah. It's mine. Yeah.
Good work.
It is mine. You also get a lot of character insights on Katara and Sokka as well, because instantaneously when Katara sees there's somebody in the iceberg, she leaps to help. Sokka, on the other hand, he instantly urges caution. Like, no, wait, we don't know who this is. So again, you see, I don't think Sokka's a buffoon. And I'm going to tell you more about that later because I don't want to spoil anything.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's overly, but he acts a buffoon. Maybe that's a better way, because he does at times.
He does, but again, I will tell you my theory on that here in just a minute. I think you'll see it as the series goes on. But anyway, the awakening of Aang causes a beam of light to shoot up in the air and get the attention of Zuko, Prince Zuko, and General Iroh. Actually, I think this is just Uncle Iroh. I think I'm getting series confused at this point. Zuko is, of course, voiced by the great Dante Basco, who you may know as Rufio from Hook. I have met the guy. He is amazing.
Really?
Oh, yes. And Iroh is voiced by the legendary Mako. I will tell you right now, two of my favorite characters in the series. Hands down, two of my favorite characters in the series. The fact that I'm saying that about the antagonists right now tells you something about what happens to them. But I will say, without any spoilers, Zuko goes on the most amazing journey of transformation throughout this entire series. Okay. And just seeing him now compared to where he is at the end is honestly kind of jarring, even though I watched the entire thing happen.
Okay. I don't know how to respond to that, because I'm like,
I know
he looks just like a bit of a bad guy to me.
And at this point, he is a bad guy. But we'll get into more of his motivations later. So Aang sneezes and blows himself 20 feet into the air. Comes back down. They recognize he's an airbender. They haven't seen an airbender before. And they don't think that anybody else has seen an airbender in well over a century. A bit of foreshadowing there. I mean, this isn't called, this isn't called the Airbender. It's called The Last Airbender, which is not a good sign for the Airbenders. Not a spoiler. I'm just saying that if you haven't figured that out by now, duh.
Yeah.
Get a very amusing scene where Appa jumps in the water rather than fly, because they are building up to that moment later. But then we go back to, oh gosh, I just love that. We go back to Iroh and Zuko. It's a very short scene, but it does communicate Zuko's motivations, why he's doing what he's doing, and that is honor. He wants honor. When I met Dante Basco, he wanted to know if I wanted a quote on the autograph, and I said, I want you just to have the word honor in bold with 3 or 4 exclamation marks behind it. And he did, and I've got it hanging in my living room right now. But yeah, Zuko needs to capture the Avatar to regain his honor. We do know what that's all we're given right now. We do learn more about it later. So Aang goes to the Water Tribe village, and he gives a quick demonstration of his abilities to the children there. And then what I think is very interesting, at that same time, we're given another Iroh and Zuko scene where we get the same thing with Zuko. We are seeing demonstrations of Aang's power and demonstrations of Zuko's power at the same time, just to get the audience ready for what these two are capable of.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really neat mirror between the two. Plus, the fact that Aang seems to be powered by joy, while Zuko seems to be powered by rage.
That's funny, because there's a couple of times in these episodes where he's really insistent about fun. And it just seems like, I think I even say, like, you fight with, like, it can be fun to fight in a way. So it's a weird, I haven't quite got my head around what he keeps mentioning fun. And I assume that's something will get involved more as we go along. But yeah, very different straight away. Yes. But it's good because, like, as someone who's never watched it before, all you can base upon is your first experience of it. And I go, well, it's easy to follow. And I like easy to follow, especially when I'm about to know I'm about to jump into something massive. I really appreciate it making it. This is a very simple tale to me at this point, which I'm enjoying. I'm loving the animation. I'm loving the characters are really well defined. But yeah, sometimes with these things, they can just throw too much of you at once. They're not here. It's good.
Yeah. So what we learned from Zuko and Iroh is that Zuko is expecting 100-year-old man. Again, foreshadowing, because we don't know that Aang is the Avatar yet. Spoiler alert: Aang is the Avatar. We don't know that yet. We don't. But Zuko does not know he's looking for a 12-year-old boy either. Aang and Katara finally go penguin sledding because Aang is a tourist. And I respect that about Aang, because I'm a tourist as well. And after going penguin sledding, they discover an old Fire Nation warship. Now, Katara's very apprehensive. She's been told, don't go on that ship. Aang wants to go aboard that ship because of course he does, and he is shocked to discover that the Fire Nation is now an aggressor nation, which shocks him because he has friends in the Fire Nation. Wow. And that's whenever he discovers that he has been in this iceberg for 100 years. Yeah. Which is somewhat of a shock.
Well, it means people he cared about no longer around.
Yeah. Most of the time, yes. I mean, 100 years is a long time, but people live very long in the Avatar universe. And so right, okay. Aang does run into a few people that he used to know. But I will leave that at that. Aang accidentally triggers a booby trap because of course he does. The ship fires a flare, getting the attention of Zuko, who has at last found the Avatar in his hiding place, the Water Tribe village, and now he is motorboating towards them, getting ready to cause all kinds of trouble. And thus ends episode 1, The Boy in the Iceberg. So, VHS Jace, your thoughts?
Well, I really think with this, like I said, I've told you I thought it was very easy to watch and follow and that. But I find it very interesting that the hero of this story being a boy actually makes him quite unpredictable and dangerous because he's behaving very much like a little boy. I can tell that he's a good guy, but he's not a perfect hero because at the end of it, he is literally giving away their position to the bad guys. So there's a lot of naivety to Aang at the moment, which makes him lovable, but yeah, could be quite dangerous. So no, I'm really liking it. I can imagine if I'd first just seen this 22 minutes and only seen this 22 minutes, yeah, I'd be very keen to see some more. So I was very impressed with a TV show that wasn't trying to solve everything in its 22 minutes. And I'm wondering, Jason, you may be able to tell me, is this one of the first real type of ongoing story, more kind of adult-orientated animation we were starting to see?
I would say it's not the first. It's certainly one of the better known ones and one of the ones that was done the best. But if you remember back in 1994, we got this terrific animated series called Gargoyles. And Gargoyles did a lot of arc-based storytelling. I remember they did this one thing that lasted almost half of the second season where several of the characters got on a boat and they could travel anywhere in the world on it. You know, the boat took them to where they needed to be, not where they wanted to be. It was basically like their TARDIS. And they ended up following that storyline for almost half the season.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Now you mentioned it, I'm thinking X-Men as well.
X-Men as well, yes. And even some of the early ones like Thundercats. Thundercats had arcs that went on for a long time, yeah.
Wow. Well, no, but a good setup episode. I was really delighted by it. I was super delighted to find out it was actually directed by Dave Filoni.
Oh, yes, Dave.
Wow. This is pre-Clone Wars. This is. So, no, it's an English production, but it is definitely, is it inspired by any books or anything? Is this an original, at this point, is this original material?
This is original material, although it does borrow deeply from several traditions around the world, most notably from Asian traditions. Although you do get a few, as you saw, a few northern indigenous traditions, because the water tribes are based on northern indigenous. The Fire Nation is based on Asian traditions. The air nomads are more Hindi, and the Earthbenders, quite honestly, I'm kind of drawing a blank where they are right now, but we don't meet them for a while.
No. So, no, excellent first episode. I thought to myself, yeah, this is not dumbed down as much as I thought it might have been. I think they're playing it straight. So, yeah, good intro. I can't wait to talk about what I thought of the second episode. Well,
let's do that now.
Yeah, let's do that now.
So the second episode is The Avatar Returns. So here we are, and this is Demona. Hello, speaking of gargoyles, this is Demona.
Hello, Demona.
Hold me, Daddy, hold me, or I will make you suffer. So The Avatar Returns picks up right where the boy in the iceberg left off. The Water Tribe adults and Sokka are very, very peeved about the flare that Aang accidentally set off. Now, Aang is a creature of contradictions. He is both irresponsible and reckless, while at the same time being very responsible and careful. And we see that here because Aang is told he has to leave, and Katara decides she's going to leave with him and go to the North Pole with him to go find a waterbending master, because that's where he needs to go to learn how to waterbend as well. Aang refuses and says, I'm not going to be the one that comes between you and your people, and does not let her come with him. And so he leaves instead. As he leaves the South Pole, Aang sees the Fire Nation ship coming. He turns back around and decides to go and protect them. Now, here is where I'm going to talk about Sokka not being a buffoon. Because Sokka, as we see, is ready. He has got his war paint on. He has got his trusty boomerang. He's got his staff. I don't think that he is a buffoon. What I think circumstances has left him out of his depth in a major way. He is basically the only man in the water village that is there to stand up against them. He literally has an army of toddlers who he is trying to train, because as they say, the wise man does not enjoy the shade of the tree. The wise man plants seeds so that later generations can. So I think that Sokka is kind of underestimated here. I see him as somebody who is trying his best with what is given to him. He is hopelessly outmaneuvered, hopelessly understaffed, but he goes and does his job anyway.
I thought this episode, it is his arc. He begins as being what I would consider that kind of moody, grumpy, full of himself, buffoonerish individual, to being at the end of it a real leader. A real leader who's ready to, accept the things what they are and embark upon the journey. So I do think this episode really, at the core, he's got the biggest change. And it is, you're right. What do you do? What do you do in that scenario? He follows his traditions. I particularly like the scene where he's war painting, because it's also juxtaposed with with what's his name getting ready. So they're both getting ready at the same time. One is, a man of one army, and the other one's literally got an army.
Yeah, these first two episodes do such a wonderful job of mirroring the actions of the protagonist and the antagonist. It's poetry. It is absolute poetry. So, and plus, you have that wonderful, horrific scene of Sokka standing there as the Fire Nation boat is literally coming down on top of him, and he does not move. He has planted his feet, and he's ready to die for his people. So, you gotta love that about him. He knows it is futile, but he's doing it anyway. So Sokka gets his butt handed to him rather easily. But it's okay, because Aang returns, and Zuko reveals to everyone that Aang is in fact the Avatar. Although Zuko is a little surprised that the Avatar is a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And here we see Aang's responsibility again, because he fights Zuko, but every time he notices that he bats away the flames, it goes over the heads of these kids, and that horrifies him, and he stops and he says, "Okay, if I go with you, will you leave these people alone?" Zuko agrees, Aang goes with him, and he basically saves the Water Tribe from any collateral damage. It also reveals something about Zuko, and that is that Zuko, although he is obsessed with finding the Avatar, is a man of his word and does what Aang asks.
Wow, that is interesting. This is where Aang gets really complex for me, because what you just described is what I picked up on, some very mature decision making from what is on the outside a very irresponsible boy who could be liable to do anything because he seems fun. But here he is doing the right thing in a mature way. So I really dug that. I thought the scene of Zuko coming in and then grabbing the grandma straight away was pretty full on, and
oh yeah,
going, where is he? Where are you hiding him? It's
he's this old. Which one? Grand should have been. I'm sorry, he's how old? How old do you think I am? I'm not 100. I'm only 50. You see the environment out here is bad on the skin.
He really comes across as a dangerous threat. He really does.
He is a dangerous person.
So, but wonderfully kind of executed, because you don't know. These are just maybe 20 people, 25 people who he could just squat like a fly. But
But again, he chooses not to. He honors his word to Aang, and he leaves them alone.
Yep. He's got his prize, I suppose, isn't he?
He does. He has his prize. He has what he wants, but he also could have been petty and just blasted the entire fire, blast them all as he left. He chooses not to.
Yeah.
He honors his word.
I have no idea what his backstory is. I would assume we will get into his backstory. But if it was me, I can definitely feel there's a whole heap of trauma there with that kid.
No, have no idea.
Yeah, so I assume I'll get to.
There's a little lady waiting in the wings who is about to. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So Yeah, there's a lot of reasons I think behind why that kid seems to be. Because the thing is with Zuko, he gives me the Anakin turned vibe. Like there was a better version of him at one point, and he's kind of succumbed to darkness in his life. But I'm just pulling that out of my
Hey,
backside.
you know
Who
what?
knows?
You pulled it out of a quality place. That's all I'm going to say. So,
all right.
so Zuko takes Aang and hightails it back to the Fire Nation because he does have his prize. Sokka and Katara, in a rare moment of sibling agreement, decide to go save Aang, and they get Grand's blessing because with the return of the Avatar, she has hope again. And so they are off to save Aang. Great scene, I thought. Let's talk more about that later. In the meantime, on board the Fire Nation ship, Aang uses his airbending to escape as Katara and Sokka approach with a swimming appa. After they, then they remember the magic words. You remember the magic words to get appa to fly? Just wondering.
Oh, I don't. I just heard it not long ago too.
It's yip yip.
Yip yip yip.
Yeah. So appa flies. What we get here is we get some
so good.
Flies. Oh, he's so wonderful. I know. Appa is just amazing. We get action scenes now aboard the Fire Nation vessel that not only demonstrates Aang's powers, but also Zuko's powers when he corners him and fights Aang. We see that Zuko again is fueled by rage. He punches hard. He's always using every muscle in his body to throw fire. Aang, on the other hand, is more into passive resistance and avoidance. And he never really strikes back until he has no choice. But whenever Aang strikes back, you feel it. Because Aang is deceptively powerful. And he basically flattens Zuko up against the wall. Oh my gosh, look at that. I want to go penguin sledding. Where is the tourist center?
I love that bit, by the way.
Yeah.
Love that bit.
So go on. So Aang tries to get away in his glider. Zuko, of course, obsessive as crazy, jumps out there, grabs him. Aang falls into the water and basically goes Wolverine feral at this point. And this is when we're introduced to something called the Avatar state. The Avatar state is almost like it's not really a spoiler. I think you can pretty much, I think watching this, you pretty much figured it out. The Avatar state is like an instinctual reflex that the Avatar goes into whenever his or her life is in danger. And basically they go out of their own body. The Avatar spirit takes over and basically lays waste to anyone around them. And this is the first time second time we've seen the Avatar state, because we actually saw it the first time in the flashback whenever he put himself in the iceberg.
Question. Now,
yes.
So when you're if you are the Avatar, the Last Airbender, he was waterbending. So if he can airbend, he will bend. So if Avatar, you've got access to all four main sources of power.
You have access to earth, wind, fire, and water. The problem is you have to learn how to use it. It's like saying that you can learn physics, algebra, trigonometry, and quantum mechanics, but you have to learn them first.
Right.
So basically everybody's an avatar in math. It's just we're all too lazy to do it. But what you're talking about right now is basically the plot of the entire series, is Aang going from nation to nation, learning how to master all of these abilities. And that is why this first season is called Water. Because he is going to be learning. I was going to ask
you about that too, because it starts with book 1.
Yes. Book 1, Water. Yep.
Yeah. So it says to me, and I didn't even know how many seasons there are, Josh. How many seasons is the show?
There's 3. 3 seasons.
Oh, interesting. 4 elements, 3 seasons. Oh,
yes.
Oh,
well,
thought maybe
well, he already knows air.
Gotcha.
So that one came pre-installed. But when the Legend of Korra comes along,
he's got to learn water. I mean, he seemed pretty good with water already.
But here's the thing, though. He can't control the Avatar state. And the only reason in my opinion, the only reason why he was able to do what he did in the Avatar state was because he was able to observe how Katara was able to waterbend. And so basically, he's just mindlessly doing this bending that he has been exposed to. That's why we didn't see him earthbend or why we didn't see him firebend, even though I think that watching Zuko do it, he should have been able to.
Yeah.
But
he's got no control.
Yeah, an interesting thing, though, the first season of The Legend of Korra is called Air.
Okay, now can you? I know this is going off a little bit. What is Legend of Korra? Is that before or after? Same time? What is
the Legend of Korra takes place about 70 years after this? So Aang has departed the physical plane, and Korra is the new Avatar.
Oh, awesome! So much to look forward to.
Oh, you have no idea. No idea. So Sokka defeats Zuko, which I thought was very, very funny, because when Zuko first appears and Sokka tries to stop him, Zuko takes Sokka's spear and just kind of dunk, dunk, dunk on his forehead just to kind of get him out of the way. Just a very humiliating defeat. Sokka returns the favor here because Zuko's trying to climb back up on the ship after Sokka gets Aang's staff, and he goes dunk, dunk, dunk just to get him off the ship. And I thought that again, a mirror. It's just a mirror over and over again. So Zuko is defeated. Aang, Sokka, and Katara fly away, but Aang, like a good little tourist, has a map of things he wants to go see, because, of course he is. This cartoon character is my spirit animal. It's like, I want to go see this, and this. I know the world is ending. I don't care. I want to go surf on some koi. And then we end the Avatar Returns episode 2. So what are your thoughts on this episode?
Can I just say, to go backwards, I love the way he's explaining all the locations going to go.
Oh, yes.
Because it's based upon the mode of transportation in that area. One's a large koi. There's some pigs, and he goes, but they don't like you riding them.
But that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. Which is really good, really good. Now, as the second episode, it's a stronger episode than the first episode. I really enjoyed the first episode. I figure this is the moment most people are getting latched into the show, I think. This is what you would say the bait episode, because I think by the end of this episode, if you're not a fan, something's not right. Because already I'm going, no, I am comfortable here. I'm enjoying where I am with them. These characters are like so much potential story-wise to go that I'm kind of latched in. The whole scene on the boat, on the Speed 2 cruise control shot boat, because that's what I thought of when it was crashing the harbour. Well, sorry, the village. No, it was great. It was a lot of action in it, like you said. Him drowning, the bit where he's drowning, I'm thinking, oh, this is maybe where Appa goes underwater and they're going to... I totally didn't see him triggering to be an Avatar again. I that was the first time I knew he could waterbend. Maybe I'd missed that he could. I know it says at the beginning, you can control all the elements, but even then, I'm still not convinced that he is like the full Avatar. But I am at the end of this episode. But yeah, it was very, very good, very good. Loved it.
Okay, so next week we will watch 2 more episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I don't remember what they are called, but I can tell you that they are good.
Okay, the Southern Air Temple. So, the Southern Air Temple.
You want to talk traumatic, but yeah.
Of Koshi.
The Warriors of Kyoshi.
Kyoshi,
the Warriors of Kyoshi. Okay, so the episode's coming up. I was not expecting this early. It's been a while since I've watched this again. I think you're going to enjoy it because they're going to be introducing a lot of lore in those episodes. So I hope that everybody out there enjoyed this inaugural episode of Breaking Wind, a Last Airbender podcast. Remember, if you liked what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us grow this humble and yet talented podcast. Let's see here. Let's bring up our socials so that everybody can find us if they want to. Do we have those on?
Do we have our socials? Oh, sorry, our
Okay.
I've got that, but I don't actually have it where we can find anyone.
Okay.
We're amateurs.
So, you know what? We're not amateurs. We're just it's the pilot episode struggle, and that's fine.
No,
so
that's pretty easy. You can find both of us on our names. If you look me up anywhere and look up VHS Jace, you're going to find me. And if you look up at Jason Roy Gaston, you're going to find him.
Absolutely. And of course, we also have our other great offerings on here. We have the Power of J Skull. We have VHS Vault. We have our weekly television wrap up. If you don't agree, you're wrong. And all kinds of fun stuff, including movie reviews and streaming gaming and everything.
Jason watches and Jason finally watches are delightful. If you like me and like
they really
Jason
are.
Orchard, you've got to go watching Fast and the Furious because it is delightful. And if you've seen the series like me and he hasn't, you get to know how much more torture he's going to go through. So just watch it for the price of admission. It's like seeing somebody be waterboarded.
Absolutely. And I would. Yeah, I was going through other franchises I haven't seen yet either, and one of them was Rocky, one of them was Highlander.
Yes, we brought that up the other
everybody's
day.
like, "Oh, Highlander! You're gonna really enjoy the first one."
You've never seen Highlander,
but I've seen the first one. I've never seen any of the other ones. My son actually told me. No, my son told me there are 6 of them. I had no idea.
Yeah,
there are 6 Highlanders. You want to know another one I've never seen? Yeah, I've never seen. I've never seen about 80% of the Halloween movies.
That's nuts. You've never seen the Paul Rudd Druid one?
I didn't even know Paul Rudd was in one.
Beautiful.
Now I have to watch it. Okay.
You have to watch it.
I have to now, I guess. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
On the channel.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure and my privilege. Please join us next week for another episode of Breaking Wind.
You know, I watched Avatar and Avatar 2 because I thought we were doing the bloody James Cameron thing.
Yeah, it's kind of
like you could have been a bit more clearer, dude. You really could have been.
Okay, so we're not looking at the half-naked blue kitty people. We're looking at the cartoon. There's a slight difference. One of them has a land at Disneyland. The other one is better.
Cool.